I'm Ruth Sanderson, and today we're going to explore coloring snow. I took this picture in my backyard in Massachusetts today around 3 in the afternoon. I pulled the photo into Photoshop and used a color picker tool to sample some colors of the snow and painted a swatch at the bottom, swatches. The reflection of blue sky creates beautiful blue shadows, and the white snow is not really white where the sunlight hits, is it? So let's get started. I've chosen 3 colors for the sky, and I'll use those same 3 colors for the snow. These are Prismacolors, and they're listed in the description under the video. I colored most of the sky already, but I wanted to do a quick demonstration on coloring blue skies too, as well as snow. So I start with cream along the horizon for a nice warm look. It's not a sunset sky, but in the late afternoon you'll notice the sky along the horizon starts to get quite golden. That's what I'm trying to convey here. Now I'll switch to sky blue light, which is an obvious choice for coloring skies. And I color over all the gray here, even though I'm going to then change to my Lt Cerulean. I like to start with a base of the light blue. And I also use long point pencil sharpeners to create an extra long point for my pencil so that it lasts longer. If you use a blunt point pencil sharpener, you'll have to sharpen a whole lot of times. And creating one long point then lets you use the pencil for much longer before you have to sharpen it. I'll probably color this entire picture and not have to sharpen my pencil again. The point gets a little flattened once you go over it with a few layers, and then you can just keep going with the pencil for a long time. Now I'm layering the Lt Cerulean Blue, and I'm starting with little circles here. This is the way most colorists, I think, tend to color. I also color using cross-hatching quite a lot. But for skies I kind of like to use the circular method. There are many ways of doing layering, and this is one. You can also cross-hatch, as I just mentioned. So it's really your choice. Experiment and see what you like. And I'm using a very light hand. This is probably the weight of if you were signing your name, for instance. You don't want to really press down when you're adding layers in the beginning, more than the kind of pressure you would use if you were signing your name. The key is building it up. It's like knitting. You're going across, and then you're going across again. It's sort of like you're building up, you're building up rows, only you're building up the rows of color on top of each other instead of a continuous sweater knit. But it sort of feels like knitting in a way. And if you get into that mindset of being very patient while you're building up your layers, I think you'll find it's very relaxing, and yeah, it's stress relieving. At least I find it so. I love detail, so I'm a patient person, and I enjoy coloring with colored pencils over grayscale and seeing the result, which can end up looking quite lovely. And with the gray underneath, it does give more depth to your picture and help show you what areas will look good lighter, a medium tone, or a darker tone. So I wouldn't go too dark on the sky, or you're going to get the effect of a darker day or even a night sky. So that's one tip for daylight. If you want to simulate daylight in your coloring, not to go too dark with the sky. So Here I'm just adding more layers, and you see I'm doing this one tiny little area in real time to show you about how long it will take for you to color a sky. But I didn't want to do the entire thing because that would be a little boring. So there you go. Now I'm going to burnish a little. So I'm going to press down a little harder now to blend the colors. I'm starting with the lightest area using my light blue pencil. You notice it's making the sky a little lighter as you burnish it, as you press down the layers. And so this is kind of flattening the tooth of the paper, and after you burnish or flatten the tooth of the paper, you really won't be able to easily add more color on top of this. This is why I often do prefer to use Gamsol after I put down many layers to blend, because then you can add more colors after you burnish with Gamsol. That does not flatten the tooth of the paper. But pencils work fine too, and if you don't have mineral spirits on hand, or if you find it too smelly, this is a fine method to smooth your colors out, to burnish, and I often use the lightest pencil to do that. Now before I get into the details of the snow, I'm just going to add a little accent. This grayscale isn't super dark, so I'm just going to hit these areas with a black pencil to pop them a little. Same three colors for the snow. Starting with cream, I'm just going to go over the light areas of the snow with not a perfect rendering. I'm doing this on purpose, so some of the light areas will be left, and I'll leave it up to you. You can make this warmer by adding more layers of the cream, or this just gives a little hint of the afternoon golden light on the snow, and that just happens to be my preference for this particular coloring. But you could add more cream and build up your colors even more. It's really going to be up to you. This is one way of doing it. If you wanted a true sunset, you could even add pink, very pale pink, to the snow for a more sunset look. But then I would add pink to the sky, etc., etc. So again, snow really reflects the colors of the sky, and that to me is the biggest tip for coloring snow, is to match your sky colors. So here I am adding in this light blue to the shadow of the snow, and putting more layers in the transition between the light and dark, and also in the back of his head where the bright snow behind him is reflecting back and creating a little bit of that reflected light edge on the back of his head. So building up and adding in the Lt Cerulean into the shadows, using that little circular motion. Snow is not perfectly smooth, and when you build a snowman, it's very crusty and textury, so that's one reason why I'm not being perfect with the way I'm laying it on, because I want it to look a little rough and chunky and textury. Snow is really fun to color. Once you get into it, it lends itself to a lot of creativity in the snow, and hopefully this you'll be able to take this into other snow pictures that you color, and try these same techniques with different images. So adding in that pale blue to only the shadow areas. I guess you could add a little bit to the light areas if you wanted, but then you don't want to darken the white snow too much. So I'm not adding any of this light blue into the white areas of the snow. So mostly the transition between the light and dark areas, and then a layer on top of the entire shadow areas, which you probably wouldn't think of doing, but it really does work. You know, I'm not bearing down too hard, just giving it a base. And the more layers you put on top of Grayscale, the more successful that picture will be. Adding in the light aqua, no, light turquoise. And again, being rough, but adding a little bit more in the shadow areas, like under the scarf would be a little slightly darker. So you can build this up as much as you like. You could add more texture in here. Here I'm adding the deepest areas of the snow. In the bottom of those ruts would be the most shadow areas. You can also add, if you want even darker shadows. Oh, here's some little footprints, sort of sideways. Those are fun. And that's just something I added in. It's not in the original picture. So you could add more ruts if you wanted. Play with it more. Snow, adding some little texture spots to the shadow side, just to give it a little more fun textures, make it a little more realistic. And then I'm burnishing it again. I think looking back on this, because I'm doing a voiceover after the demo, I'd probably add even more light turquoise in the shadow of the bottom of the snowman. But I wanted to do this pretty quickly for you to see how you could pretty easily create a nice look on snow. And of course, you know, you could spend much more time on this than I have. But this will give you the general concept of coloring snow. So there you have it. Snow. Some details. I'll talk a little bit about the colors I used for the other parts of the picture. And they're all listed in the comments below if you want to know the colors I used for everything else, including the bird and the hat and what have you. So, but I just used two colors for the scarf, for instance. And the texture of the scarf, the knitted part, shows right through. The drawing shows right through. And I just use these two colors. I think it's a sand or jasmine maybe, and green. And if you want to accent anything, add outlines. I usually tend to use a dark brown as opposed to a black. But you can also use a dark color of whatever object whatever part you're working on. But I like dark brown in general. It's sort of a warm dark, and it looks good. Just showing you the color I used to color over the grayscale sky is a sort of a medium brown, and then I just added my own tree branches. And I added some little white branches showing snow covering them. And then the final part of when you're done with everything else is to add snowflakes. If you want, you can leave it with no snowflakes, because snow actually doesn't fall on a bright sunny day necessarily, unless there are clouds on the outside of the picture. But snowflakes are so much fun. I like to add them. You can add many different sizes of snow. Big ones, small ones, sort of random here and there. And snowflakes are six-sided, so I like to add a few bigger ones where you can actually see the six sides, and then I add a few little dots to indicate, you know, the complexity of a snowflake, which isn't just it has six sides, but then many little, you know, details in it. And some very tiny snowflakes. Snowflakes are, in real life, the ones farthest away from you are really tiny, and the one closest to you, you can see more detail. If one was right in front of your face, it would be quite big. So this is adding perspective, an element of perspective to the picture by having the snow a little bit in perspective. So all the snowflakes are not the same size, because in real life, they are not. They are at various depths. So this is one way to color a simple sky and snow with 3 colors. There's a link in the video's description to a free download of this image if you'd like to color along. The picture's a close-up from a page in my coloring book, Santa's Christmas. See you next time.